Hello, everybody. Welcome to Law Talk NH Unfiltered. I'm attorney Brian Stone with Stone Law PLLC here in New Hampshire. Today I'm starting a new series on the drug pipeline to New Hampshire. So I've been seeing a lot of articles for what it seems about are years in the local paper like the Union Leader, WMUR, Seacoast Online, what have you. Every now and then we get some what's called a major drug bust here in New Hampshire, where a bunch of low-level, drug peddlers, street dealers are rounded up. Sometimes it's like, a half a dozen, or they'll say it's a really big deal, a grand accomplishment for the local police departments if it's even more than a dozen people. The big problem with this is it does virtually nothing at the end of the day to stem the flow of these drugs into New Hampshire, because these drug peddlers, these are low-level people. These are like the people you went to high school with that became losers. These are not the people making the drugs, or not the people that brought the drugs into the state. These are easily replaceable, low level. These are not even the regional people in charge. These people, they get arrested, they can be replaced like that. No problem at all. But our police force, their police departments, they waste God knows how much money, state funding, maybe federal funding, local town funding to make it look like they've really accomplished something. And I don't want to downplay the great work law enforcement does. I'm sure they're doing their best. Town cops, they can only work with what's going on in the town. They don't really have the jurisdiction in the first place to go after the source, the real bad guys. There's nothing they can do about it. Okay. And a lot of the time I feel like it's really misleading people, like, oh yeah, we've stemmed the flow, we got all these people in Nashua. It's like, it's not doing anything. These people in Nashua are going to be replaced. Not to mention, whenever these people get arrested, they're usually released out on bail in short order, so they can just keep doing what they're doing. These low-level peddlers are usually like the people that are addicted to the drugs. They're trying to pay off their drug debts, so they become these low-level peddlers. They're just, frankly, not the smartest people. They're usually complete morons. Addicted to their own supply, or they're opportunists. Buying some drugs somewhere else and trying to sell it here in New Hampshire for a higher price to make a quick buck. But they're usually complete idiots. Of course, they're going to get caught by law enforcement. They're complete morons. I figured, I'll start a series on letting people know where do these drugs actually come from. Why does it seem like nothing's really changing? So I'm going to start a couple of episodes for the series. I'm going to start with focusing on the drug pipeline. First pipeline we're going to focus on is China. So by far, most of our fentanyl comes from China. So that started around like 2013, 2014. We started seeing that on a large scale here in New Hampshire. And at that time, all the fentanyl was just being made in China, where it wasn't illegal at the time. And I'll get into that, how that changed a little bit. But at that time, people in China, they just made the fentanyl and they'd send it here. And what they do is they send it to the drug cartels, like the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico, and they would smuggle it in across the border, with trucks, whatever, mules, through the ports, however. And they'd also in China, they just send a shit ton of mail to the United States with fentanyl. And, our Border Patrol, our customs, they can't stop all of that stuff. So on top of that, sometimes you see articles, major drug catch at a border or through the postal service. That's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, they're not making any major sizable dent in that stuff getting in here. The people that sell that stuff and people that make that stuff, they know that. They know, okay, some of my supply, is going to get intercepted. It's very minimal. It's just the cost of doing business. So it's not really, at the end of the day, it's not impacting anything except all the money that we're spending on taxes to just keep doing it. It doesn't do it. It's just another day at the office to these people. It's just the cost of doing business. Okay. As the drug problem started getting worse, there's a lot of engagement at the top between the U.S. federal government and the Chinese government. As people kept, dying all over the place. This resulted in 2019. China finally said, the USA promised, hey, we'll give you some deals with economic, trade, doing international trade. If you just label all your fentanyl in your country as drugs, so that would impose strict regulatory control on production. But you got to remember, China's a communist country. Their low-level enforcers are corrupt as hell. They probably just botch numbers up just to make themselves look good to the Chinese Communist Party anyway, and they're probably corrupt. They just get these officers on the streets and regulatory bodies. They just get bribed. That's part of the culture in Asia. Bribery is just seen as a normal cultural thing. It's just the cost of doing business. So that's not really going to do anything. But anyways, they changed their laws. So they said, hey, you can't export fentanyl anymore. Okay. But it wasn't. They couldn't ban fentanyl because it's an important drug. It's used as a painkiller for cancer patients. It's used in surgeries, stuff like that. But anyways, the Chinese traffickers, the guys that were just making the fentanyl, just completed fentanyl and shipping it over here and into Mexico to be smuggled in here. They got around this thing easily because all they did is they just started making what are called the precursors for fentanyl. So think of that as like the parts, the ingredients. So they do all the basic ingredients, and then they just ship over those precursor chemicals to the United States and to the Mexican cartels with just instructions. Oh, here's the basic ingredients. Here's how you make it into fentanyl. Problem solved. Okay. So it didn't stop a damn thing. And China's still the principal supplier by far of these precursors for fentanyl. Okay. They're also the number one supplier of the precursors for meth. So China's a big problem. Okay. But remember, these traffickers, they're not being punished, okay? And when talks, after China passed this law, America didn't pony up. America didn't give China even more favorable trade deals that never materialized. So just the shipping of the fentanyl, even though it's still illegal in China, the completed product, you got to enforce the law. So what a government will do, like China, is say, hey, you didn't own up to the deal, you didn't pony up the deal. They're going to leave the law on the books to make themselves, look good, like they're tough on drugs, and they are domestically, but internationally, no, they're not. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But what they've decided to do is, okay, it's still illegal, but we're not going to arrest anyone for it. We're not going to conduct any investigations. It's a law that means nothing because it's unenforced. As China's saying, well, well, screw you, America. You didn't own up to your deal. We're just going to let people keep shipping the full fentanyl now into your country. Okay? So, there's, let's, get into these people in China. It's not, people think of, oh, China, Chinese gangs like the triads. These are some of the most powerful criminal groups in the world. There's another Chinese group, they call them 14K, that's what they go by, or the Fujian Mafia. They're not actually the people selling the fentanyl and the fentanyl precursors to the Mexican cartels. The principal people doing this, they're just these little businesses in China. So it's not worth it for these big criminal organizations like the triads, because the fentanyl market in China is cheap. It doesn't make enough profit to make it worth their while, especially at the level of precursors. So it's like these smaller criminal gangs, they front as like businesses that are making the drugs. And then they call these little groups, like the American, our federal government just calls them by their regions, like the Zhang market. A lot of these groups don't even have names, so we just make up names. Like the Zhang market is called the Zhang market because the head of it, his last name is Zhang. So a lot of these groups are under the radar. Sometimes they're just a couple of people. Sometimes it's a whole Chinese family. They're just operating a family business. So that's what they do to make money. Another reason why China is not really doing anything about it is because, just think about it for a moment. They're supplying the meth, the fentanyl. They know it's getting into the United States. They're not idiots. So what happens when you have all these people dying, addicted to drugs? It's, it costs the United States money. Drug enforcement, hospital bills, people dying, people being unfit to work, people being unfit to join the military. It's a form of clandestine warfare. They're killing our people. So that's great. As far as they're concerned, great. Weakening America is great for China. So of course they're going to keep supplying it. So that's what they're after. They're after killing as many Americans as possible, weakening our economy, because when people are addicted to drugs, they're not working. That's not good for the economy. People aren't paying taxes. People are dying left and right. When people are addicted to drugs, they're not productive members of society. And that can be a major drain on a country's economy. And China knows that. That's why they have some of the strictest drug laws domestically in the world. So that's another perspective that's being overlooked. Might not be overlooked by the CIA or something, but is completely overlooked by, domestically in the news, completely overlooked by people. People don't even really think about that. So just remember that. Where these big gangs are involved, like the triads, is laundering the money these people are making in China. So and Mexico. So these cartels, they're making all this money selling the fentanyl. The domestic companies are making all this money selling the precursors or shipping the fentanyl to Mexico. So they need someone to launder their money, to hide their money, to make it look legitimate. They need it mixed in with legitimate money somehow. And that's usually what big criminal organizations like 14K and the triads do. They launder money because there's business in that. They get a cut. They get a cut of that money they're laundering. And that's what makes these criminal organizations even more powerful. And then they fund things, like prostitution, arms dealing. It's just a mess. It just makes things a lot worse. So just remember, as these criminal organizations get more money means more power. means they can influence things, they can influence the law, they can influence politicians, they can influence cops, border patrol. So it's kind of a joke to think we really have any ultimate control right now. Imagine if you're like a border patrol agent, you've got some critical piece of border you're patrolling. You're some senior level guy. You make $60,000 a year maybe after taxes, and the cartel says, hey, we'll give you $1 million a year if you just look the other way when my guys come through. Do you really think that people aren't going to take those offers? Of course they are. Not everyone is an angel. Not everyone's principles are all about protecting the country. Most people, not everybody, most people have a price. They can just keep going up. These people make so much money, they don't even know what to do with it. They have no place to actually even put it. They're making money just so quick. They don't know what to do with it. So something we need to be aware of. Okay, these, how in a broad sense, I'll explain how the fentanyl and the meth, how this, especially the fentanyl, how it ends up getting to New Hampshire in a broad sense. And in later episodes, I'll cover it in detail as we go over the chain. Okay, so in a summarized sense, China ships the precursors or the completed fentanyl to Mexico in the United States. Mexico's, they'll do it on cargo ships. They've got all these people at the major ports paid off, and they know how to get around the ports in Mexico. And the cartels will just come and pick it up, and they'll smuggle it into the United States. Okay, and usually what they'll do, and it'll come, it'll go to another port, and it can get shipped to big places, the Dominican Republic, and you'll see why in a little bit. But anyways, they get it in the United States either directly across the border, and they'll do that by just hiding it in trucks, mules. They've got plenty of ways to get it across our land border. And then port-wise, they'll go to the Mexican ports on the Gulf, okay, or Gulf of America, whatever you want to call it. They'll just put it on another boat. For the most of the fentanyl that comes here to New Hampshire, is they'll just ship it in a cargo ship to New York City. That's a major hub. And then from New York City, local gangs there will get it. They'll transport it, or they'll have people from Massachusetts come, and we'll get into the Massachusetts gangs. So major area, major hub in Massachusetts is Lawrence. Pretty much 90% of our of the drugs that come into New Hampshire, they shoot off from Lawrence, Massachusetts. Okay, and there's these Dominican gangs there in Massachusetts. Okay, but anyway, so they get it in that way. They'll have their guys drive to New York City. And then I'll drive all the way back to Lawrence, or we'll have a New York gang drive it up there because they can charge more because it's further away from the source. So sometimes like a New York gang, like a Colombian gang or something, they'll drive it solo, even though they're not supposed to, all the way up to New Hampshire and make a quick buck. Just a couple hour drive, make some good money. Or it'll end up in Lawrence, and then in Lawrence, these gangs will have like a kilo, half a kilo of this stuff, and they'll sell it to low-level dealers in New Hampshire. So, think of it as like the higher end low-level dealers will drive to Lawrence, pick this stuff up, drive back to New Hampshire in a U-Haul or rental car or whatever. Up I-93 into Nashua and Manchester. Then they'll give it, they'll either sell it themselves, or they'll give it to even more low-level people that owe them money. These are usually the people the police are rounding up, and they'll have them sell it on the streets. So these people are rarely, if ever, getting arrested. They're having their very low-level people do it, and you can see how a lot of this is happening internationally. So there's nothing New Hampshire State Police, nothing like a Nashua PD can do about this. A lot of the problem, direct problem, right before it gets to New Hampshire is places like Lawrence, these Dominican gangs. And there's nothing the state of New Hampshire is doing about that because we have no jurisdiction in Massachusetts whatsoever. And there doesn't appear that we're putting any pressure on Massachusetts to do anything about that. And I'm sure these cartels have a lot of power. These cartels with all this money in Mexico, and these Dominican gangs. Who knows who they're paying off? Are they paying off Mass State Police? Who are they paying off? Do they have people that work for them in the Massachusetts Police, and Massachusetts Lawrence PD at the Massachusetts State House? I'm sure they do. I'm sure people will say that's crazy, but of course they do. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So just be aware of that. Money gets people elected. So just think about that, okay? So, what the big port in Mexico is Veracruz. So a lot of smuggling happens through that port. So it's a big port for fentanyl and meth. So and now that the U.S. and China, even now with Trump and this trade war crap, it's even worse. There's no cooperation at all. It's not like the Chinese government and U.S. government. It's not like our DEA is like, what can we do? How can we work together? We don't have friendly relations on that level. So just be aware of that. So there's no not really any counter-narcotics international cooperation going on. It was already bad during the Obama administration, and when and Biden got even worse, and now it's Trump. It's even lower. People thought it couldn't get any worse. It's even worse now. So just be aware of that, okay? So that's where we're at in regards to China. We're not really doing shit to stop them from bringing that in here, okay? And it's a big problem with the post office. People don't really think. They're like, oh, how are these drugs getting in here? We got our amazing border patrol, and so what? It could just ship a huge, if someone can just send a big ass box of fentanyl with the U.S. Postal Service. Yeah, they're gonna catch some of it. They're not gonna catch most of it. They make so much money off of what they get through. It's not going to stop them from sending it over. The U.S. Postal Service doesn't have the manpower, the resources. They frankly don't have the funding. What are they going to do? They're going to stop every piece of mail coming over from China or coming over from wherever, Mexico, or who the hell knows by the time it gets ultimately sent into the United States. So these are big things people need to think about. Like, all right, well, that's how it's getting here. Do you think arresting these low-level people in New Hampshire, do you think that really has any control over that whatsoever? So just, and even what we have for enforcement, at our border, it's not doing anything. It's essentially unhampered criminal activity, okay? And the Chinese government, they don't care. They're just looking the other way. They don't care. It's not Chinese people dying. It's not Chinese people getting addicted to drugs. It's their people in China. These groups they're getting rich. That's not bad for China that some of their people are making money. That's great for China because those people that make money in China, guess what? They're spending their money in China. So there's absolutely zero incentive for the Chinese government to crack down on this. So it's just something we got to be aware of, okay? So China likes to they want to look good, but they're very tough on how they approach counter narcotics because they have very draconian penalties. If you get caught, you do not want to get caught in China selling drugs in China, okay? With their court system, their punishments are pretty severe. They're probably human rights violations. But hey, if you're selling stuff to the United States, hey, who cares? Why would they care? It's silly to think that they would. We're their number one international adversary. So just remember that, okay? So that's where we're at in our timeline. And it's like, just remember, people can make promises. The Chinese government down the road, they can make promises with the Trump administration. Is that really going to stop anything? Remember, there's people on the ground in China. Remember, these are Communist Party little low-level cops or whatever in a town. You really think they can't be paid off and look the other way? You really think they want to do more work than they need to do? You think they want to be the jurisdiction that has all the drug problems? No, they're gonna be like, all right, pay me some money. I'll look the other way. There's no drug issue in my area. I'm a good Communist Party police officer. Everything's good in my area, so I can get promoted and make money on the side. Everything looks good on paper. Drugs are still going to keep flowing into here. So, really something to think about. That's the main artery is China. All that fentanyl, basically all of our fentanyl, it's coming from China. It's being made there. Precursors are being made there. It's not like being made somewhere around in Nashua or somewhere in Massachusetts or something. It's being made in China. So just be aware of that. When you hear on the news, oh, China, a couple of years, China scheduled fentanyl, which means they passed a law to make it. That doesn't mean they can't sell parts of fentanyl. Remember, it's got to be enforced. They're not enforcing that anymore. They don't care. So just be aware of that. That's kind of what Trump's trying to do with this tariff war stuff that they're doing now. It's trying to say, hey, you need to do something about this. So that's where we're at. We're at economic warfare. This is a form of war. We are countries at war. We can put on a nice face on the news, say we're negotiating. It's warfare. We're at war. Okay, people need to remember we're always at war with our adversaries. You just might not see it. There's an economic war. There's planning. They're thinking about decades into the future, what the relationship's going to look like. What can they get over on us? What can we get over on them? It's not just China trying to be adversarial. We're adversarial to them as well. So it's a two-way street. It's not like we're goody two-shoes with China. The only people that really get in trouble in China, high-level people, are people that screw around with the Chinese government, okay? Those people will just get set up. They'll get set up for bribery, for trafficking, and it's because they piss someone very high-level off, okay? They know all their other associates do the same thing. They'll just pick on that one person because they messed around, and now they're going to find out they messed with the wrong person. So just be aware of that, okay? I'm going to show you guys, I think this is the most recent news article. So 17 people arrested in the North Country, right? Look at that. We got Manchester DEA right there. Look at that. Look at that. You think that's making a dent? You think that's going to change anything? Look at these. Look at these people. You think these are the masterminds? You think these people can't be replaced? Look at these people. These people seem like they're high-level rocket scientists selling drugs in New Hampshire? These people get caught because they're idiots. They're low-level, easily replaceable people. They do not matter in the grand scheme of things. Okay. But hey, it makes your local politicians look. It makes your police chief look good. It makes the DEA be able to ask for, we need even more money because we are just hot shit. We are great at our job. Look at what we did. I see this news. It just gets recycled over and over. It's not doing anything. It's like think of it as cleaning your bedroom. Clean your bedroom. You just let it get messy again. You clean it again and say, look at me. I'm so great. It's not changing anything. But look at this. Look at this. the State Police Narcotics Investigations Unit in the DEA. They could have saved, it's not that this work is completely worthless. I mean, these drugs, it could have saved that they got, even could have saved one life. I mean, that makes a difference, but, would that stop that person from getting the drugs ultimately or getting it somewhere else? Who knows? But look at this, possession of controlled drugs, conspiracy to sell. These people usually have huge criminal records. They cut these shitty deals with the state. They'll be out in a couple of years, but these people would be replaced on. You don't think these organizations in Massachusetts, like the Trinitarios that's the biggest Dominican gang, that's smuggling in fentanyl, into New Hampshire, and then it gets cut, so it gets mixed into other drugs, okay, like cocaine, meth, marijuana. It gets mixed in there, so they can get people addicted to the fentanyl. Okay, they get people addicted to the fentanyl. People are addicted. Guess what they're going to do now? You got a great repeat customer, because fentanyl is extremely addictive. It's also what's responsible for most of the mortalities by far. It is very deadly. But these organizations don't care. They just care about getting their clients hooked on these drugs. They can always get new clients. They just care about getting you hooked. But this operation included Colebrook and Berlin PD. Great job. Okay, so what? We arrest these people, they get replaced, they get out on bail, whatever. They just find new people. Business rolls on. Do you think the drugs in do you think there's going to be any dent in the drugs coming into Coos County? Absolutely not. And remember, this was a 4-month-long investigation to catch these losers. Okay, so you think that's making a difference? No, absolutely not. It's not doing anything. But we're paying for it. Okay. Now look at this. This is an unclassified intelligence report from the DEA. Okay. You can kind of see the map here. Okay. So fentanyl precursors, they're coming in. Okay. A little bit of it comes in through Canada across the border, but that's very little. Most of it's getting shipped here in the mail into the United States, but by far most of it's going to Mexico, where they can finish up with the precursors, make the fentanyl, smuggle it across the border, or they'll find a port here, they'll bring it over here, they bring it, main hub for Northeast New York City. Everything's coming in New York City. Some of it's being driven all the way from the Mexican border to New York City. Some of it's coming in to the port in New York City. And then it's going to make its way to Lawrence in Massachusetts, and it's going to get into New Hampshire. That's basically a very dumbed down version of how it's getting in here. Okay, so in Mexico, they're going across the border, and or they're mailing it in, or they're bringing it on cargo ships, especially from the Dominican. A lot of its cargo ships go to the Dominican, then comes there. So remember, the biggest group that's bringing this stuff in are these little Dominican family gangs, but the big Dominican gang, think of them as like the enforcers for these little family Dominican gangs in Lawrence, are the Trinitarios. Okay, that's the big problem for New Hampshire, because if you stop it there, then it won't be getting into New Hampshire. There's nothing New Hampshire can do. You can arrest all the people you want in New Hampshire, you're not doing shit in Massachusetts. So just remember that. That's where all the drugs are coming. It's mostly Lawrence. Okay, and then these Dominicans, they've got like little spin-off hubs, so they've got like one in like Lowell, the little border towns, but the major hub is Lawrence by far. They've got a lot of houses where they just store like kilos of drugs, and then they'll sell little bits and pieces off to dealers. Mid-level little gangs in New Hampshire, and then they'll give it to their low-level scumbags or people that owe them money to sell it on the streets. That's pretty much how it works. Okay. So they've been seeing increased. Nothing's changing. Okay. Fentanyl smuggled across the U.S.-Mexico border in low concentration, high volume loads, kilos. Okay. So the big Mexican cartels. There's mainly the big two: Sinaloa and New Generation Jalisco. These are the top two. Okay. So just keep those on the back of your mind. And then some of these organizations, these people are so forward thinking that they've started having Indians make the precursors in the fentanyl. Because they're like, oh, maybe they'll get something done with China. It doesn't matter. They've moved on to India. India is an emerging place for cheap labor to make crap. So as China gets more restrictive or more advanced, you got cheap labor and even shittier enforcement in India. It's kind of like Apple. Like Apple's like, oh shit, what if trade goes south with China? We could just start making our iPhones in India. Guess what? The Sinaloa cartel and Jalisco, they're thinking the same shit. These are not stupid people. These are people making hundreds, billions of dollars. You don't think they have smart people working for them? You don't think they have people well versed in economics and international trade, lawyers? They have all these people working for them. Okay, ex-cops. They are not idiots. Okay. And even if they didn't know something about something, guess what? They have the money to hire someone to advise them. Okay. So just be aware of that. Okay. But you'll continue to see reports like this. Oh, look at that! Wow. That's really changed something. Like, this is going to stop somebody from being addicted to drugs. It's not. This is going to stop the flow coming into New Hampshire. It's not. What it really does is it's just like rinse and repeat. That's we're paying for rinse and repeat to look at what is it ultimately accomplishing. I don't know. I guess it's helping pay the DEA salaries and the state police. It's making it justifiable to increase their budgets or hire more cops. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have more cops or increase budgets, but obviously this gets spun as something to say, hey, look, I either have a problem, I need more money, or I'm doing such a great job, I need more money, or I need more employees. It's more like everyone, it's a circle jerk. Everyone's patting themselves on the back. They didn't really accomplish anything at the end of the day. All right. So it's a big problem. Remember, China is, in a couple of decades, World War III could start with China. China's looking long term. Okay? China's the oldest continuing civilization on the planet. All right, the Chinese Communist Party might be new, but they are looking down the road, way down the line. So as the situation stands right now, China's not doing anything. They have zero interest. You have to look at it from their perspective. This is great news for them. They're killing Americans or poisoning our society, making a weaker America. That's great news for the Chinese Communist Party. So they can act all well and good and say the right things on the news. That's because they're communists. They know how to put out propaganda. Masters of propaganda. So you can't you got to look behind the scenes or between the lines of what's being said on the news and what that really means. So, what does it really mean? It means, oh, well, hey, America, you give us $1 billion, this great trade deal. Hey, we'll pretend like we'll arrest a couple of people, we'll pass a law, but we'll pretend like we're doing something because they'll get something from us for that. So they're playing a balancing game of how they can best get one over on us. So just think about that, okay, in regards to Chinese fentanyl. And there's no way to really stop it because they can, even if they could outlaw precursor, they can change the ingredients a little bit. I mean, it's not going to stop anything. Remember, Think of all the people in China. This isn't going to get stopped. There's always going to be people that need money, that are making money. So just remember that, and it's worth the risk to a lot of these people. We'll talk about that in a later episode, like Trinitarios. It's like that's their culture. That's how they make all their money. That's how they take care of their kids. That's how they're paying their bills. Is there a chance they'll get? Do they know that hey, if I get caught, I might go to prison for a couple of years? In New Hampshire, which is tougher on these drug sales, and Massachusetts is soft on crime. So that's why they're in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is a lot softer on drug crime than New Hampshire, and they're out of our reach. They're out of New Hampshire's reach. But even these the middle-level, low-level guys in like Nashua, Manchester, Rochester, they're making good money. You're making good money. You're like, all right, what's the worst that can? Maybe I'll go to prison for 2 years, 3 years, if I get caught and I do a crappy plea bargain, and they just do a couple of years and they're out. Worth it? Of course, it would be worth it. Think about it. Think about if it was you. If you're making hand over fist, and worst thing that could happen is maybe you get caught, you go to prison for a couple of years. That's worth it to a lot of people. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. You get caught, you go to prison for a couple of years. It might just be the price of doing business. So, something for everybody to think about. You got to think. A lot of these people, these are desperate people too. Some of these people, especially the very low level. Remember, they're felons. They can't get good jobs. Our society has kind of screwed people over by ruining their lives forever when they're a convicted felon. So now they can't get a job anywhere. What are they going to do? Why not sell drugs? That's a good way to make good money. Other than that, maybe you could be a construction worker. It's our society makes it worse with the certain penalties. As far as hey, if you get convicted of something, you did your time. Why should it keep biting you in the ass? It doesn't. It's a terrible stigma that just makes things worse. Someone's a felon. They went to prison for 7 years. Don't you think they they did their time? You don't think they appreciate the gravity of their situation and what they did? Society just needs to give them a clean slate at that point. You just need to let people start over. That's not how our society works. So just remember, you're someone with like 4 kids, you're a felon. What are you going to do to pay the bills? Some people, they'd rather not do this, but they have to do this. That's how they make their money. Or the money's too good. It's a hell of a lot better than working at McDonald's. If you could make really good money being a mule, just running drugs across the border from Lawrence to New Hampshire. So these are big problems when it comes to how the drugs get into New Hampshire. Okay. And just remember, all these ports and the mail and the smuggling, these people have it down to an art. They have it down to an art form. Okay. And they're much better funded than a local police department or the ports. These people have billions of dollars. Okay. You hire the best people with billions of dollars to think about, hey, how can you get me through this thing? Or who can we pay off? Who can we pay off? Well, we can't pay him off. Maybe you kill him. Maybe you pay off the replacement. These people have it down to fine-tuned art. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. These people do not mess around. They're highly intelligent, highly organized. Okay. And at the end of the day, they're going to meet the demand for their supply. That's just the way it is until Americans start taking things seriously, and and that's not going to happen in our country unless people on the street, regular citizens like us, make a big stink about it, and we're not. If we do make a stink about it, it's just about, oh, well, we got these low-level punks on the street. I need the local PD to get rid of them. And they do, and it's just a cycle. Okay. Think about just the way our society is set up here in New Hampshire, all the stress people have, the huge cost of everything. It's completely unaffordable to live here. Buying a home is a joke at this point, unless you're a millionaire. People are they're gonna resort to doing drugs and or selling the drugs. Okay, people keep doing the drugs, business is good. They keep getting more people hooked. People keep falling on hard times, or the life has just become too stressful. People don't go out. People aren't working out. People aren't hanging out with friends. They're not socializing. Things just cost too much. People are living paycheck to paycheck. It's not good for your mental state. And what a lot of people do is, just be blunt, a lot of people do not have high mental fortitude. So they resort to alcohol and drugs. That's what they do. That's how they cope. They cope by resorting to alcohol, drugs, beating up their girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. That's what they do. So just be aware of that. So remember, the source is China. A lot of people may not know that. It's all this fentanyl and a large portion of the meth in New Hampshire. If you go back far enough all the way to the source, it's being made by some little Chinese family in some Chinese city, and they're just making hand over fist. These people are becoming extremely wealthy, upper middle class, if not high class Chinese families, and they're completely taking advantage of the system and of the laws and of us. And can you really blame them? Would we do the same thing if we were in their shoes? Okay, and then a lot of them, they send their kids to our universities. It's a ridiculous cycle. So just be aware of that. That's kind of a different story, but a lot of Chinese kids go to our law schools just to learn how to take advantage of our laws. They go to law school here to learn how to get around our intellectual property laws, just to learn how things work, and then they leave. Say, oh, thanks, thank you. So just something to think about. I don't want people to discriminate against Chinese people, but you got to remember, there's an organization here. Okay, the Chinese government has a mission. Don't be fooled by niceties, thinking they don't. They are the enemy. Okay, the Communist Party, not Chinese people in general. But just remember, basically, if you're Chinese, especially if you live in China or have ties to China, the Chinese Communist Party can make you do whatever they want. So something people need to think about, take seriously. What are the drugs here? And it's a business. Everyone's making money. The wheels are getting greased. There's definitely wheels getting greased everywhere, or else we wouldn't be getting in here so easily. And people need to wake up to that. People are easily corruptible for money. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be some police sergeant, some border patrol, whatever, some port authority guy. People are highly corruptible. They can be threatened. They can be paid and threatened at the same time. They can just be paid to not do anything, look the other way. And even not accounting for that, these cartels like Sinaloa and New Generation, these people are they have experts in smuggling stuff into the United States. And even in China, just mailing things into the United. Remember, these people try everything. They try everything in the book. They've been doing this for years. How can I get this through? Did this work? Did this work? Did it get there? They know how to get things in here. They've got it fine-tuned. And there's no chance in hell we can catch it all. Somebody could send 20 boxes of fentanyl here. Maybe, imagine if we caught 5 of the 20. That's just the price of doing business. They're making so much money off the other 75% of the shipment they got through. They've already calculated it on the books. Oh, yeah, we lose 5, not a big deal. So that's already priced in, is what they call it. For all you day traders out there, it is priced into the books, so it's not a loss at all to anybody. The only person it's a loss to is the American taxpayer, and the unsuspecting, sometimes usually unsuspecting, because remember they're mixing in this fentanyl into other drugs to get them addicted to the fentanyl. Fentanyl, it's very deadly. That's the ultimate victim. So just ponder that. About where it's coming from China. What can we do? Can the Trump administration really put pressure? We could put a lot of pressure. Could we spend more money? You could spend it. Is it a money problem, or is it what kind of pressure can we put on the Chinese Communist Party? But New Hampshire-wise, what can the New Hampshire government do? Is try to use whatever they can to try to pressure, negotiate, talk, whatever, with Massachusetts. There needs to be a lot more cooperation with what's going on in Lawrence. I mean, it's all coming from Lawrence. Why is that not a focus? Why don't we have hundreds of police on the streets going into all these homes, stopping these drugs coming in from Lawrence? Everybody knows it's coming in from Lawrence. Nothing's really being done about it. Why not? That's a big question to ask. So I'm going to cut the live stream for this episode. Next episode, I'll probably focus on talk a little bit about the Mexican cartels, a little bit more. What's the United States doing about that? Is the Mexican government doing anything? What's the status of these cartels? All right. And we'll go from there. And so it's a bit of a road to get to New Hampshire. But just remember, China is the source. That is the main pipeline, is our number one geopolitical adversary. So think about that when you think we can really negotiate anything with them. All right. Until next time, that's it for this Law Talk NH episode on the Drug Pipeline series, episode 1, how Chinese fentanyl ends up on New Hampshire streets. If you're looking for legal advice, I do have my own firm. It's Stone Law PLLC. And if people want to reach me, they can contact me. And my email is contact.stonelaw@gmail.com. All right. Until next time, folks.